Over the last week, there's been major drama unfolding at the FBI and the Department of Justice. There's been threats of resignation, whistleblowers, and outrage over how the Jeffrey Epstein case has been handled. But this isn't just a political scandal, and it's not just about Jeffrey Epstein. This is about something much bigger. Government accountability. And that's something that we as Americans, regardless of political party, should be very concerned about. When powerful institutions attempt to hide the truth, manipulate the narrative, or protect their own, we all lose. And when people on our side start doing it, we must speak up. We cannot just dismiss it. Today, we're going to dig into what's really happening with the Epstein case, how the MAGA base is responding, and why it's time to use our discernment over blind loyalty. Because if we aren't going to hold our government accountable, who will? Hey everybody, I'm Julie Barrett and I'm the founder of Conservative Ladies of America. And today we're going to dig into a topic that's a little bit outside my typical wheelhouse and ours here at Conservative Ladies, but it's something that has been concerning to me for a while, and especially since the whole BinderGate scandal that happened back in February at the White House with a number of conservative influencers. If you remember, a number of conservative influencers from X were brought to the White House and they were given these Epstein case binders that supposedly had a bunch of information, all of the intel on the Epstein files that the American people had long awaited. Well, it turned out there was nothing in the binders. And we even saw Pam Bondi go on Fox News and other media outlets and tell the American people that she had the Epstein files on her desk and that these details were going to be released to the American people. Well, here it is July, and that has never happened. And last week, President Trump said that it's time for people to move on. We've heard enough about Jeffrey Epstein, and it's time just to move on. And there's no there. Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, and there's nothing in the files that the American people need to know about. This should be really concerning to all of us that we were told there was a there, and now we're being told that it's not, and we're being told just to move on and stop asking questions. Since I've been an activist, I have been very concerned with accountability. And one of the things I often say is it's not personal, it's policy. And what I mean by that is when it comes to elected leaders, while we can like them as a person, we do need to hold them accountable to their policy decisions and their votes. And so that goes for President Trump as well. You can be a Trump supporter and also hold him accountable. We, as American citizens, have a responsibility to hold our elected leaders accountable. And I think one of the reasons that our government is so corrupt and such a dirty swamp is because the citizenry hasn't been doing their job of holding elected leaders accountable. And so it has allowed this stench of a swamp to really get very bad and very corrupt. And it's time for us to start paying attention. And that starts with our own side. Just because someone has an R next to their name doesn't mean that they get a free pass, doesn't mean that we give them blind loyalty, and doesn't mean that we don't ask questions when something's just not right. Last week, the DOJ under Attorney General Pam Bondi released a memo that said there's no credible evidence of an Epstein client list. They also claimed that Epstein died by suicide. They even released video footage, but there is a strange 1-minute gap in the footage. A lot of conservatives are rightly asking questions, and if you've been following Dan Bongino for any length of time, you've probably heard him on his podcast before he was the deputy director for the FBI saying that he did not believe at all that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. There is rumor at the FBI that Dan Bongino has threatened to quit. And that would kind of make sense if he doesn't believe that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. And here he is being told that he has to say that he did, which Dan Bongino and Kash Patel both are on video saying that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, which raised a lot of eyebrows among conservatives who had been told by both of those gentlemen for some time that Jeffrey Epstein Epstein was murdered. Even many of the conservative influencers who were part of BinderGate are even asking questions now and are speaking out on social media claiming that they believed that when they got these binders, they were actually getting the Epstein files, which they clearly did not. But here's the thing with these influencers, they're actually part of the problem. There is a huge conservative influencer movement across different social media platforms. These influencers get paid to push a certain narrative on social media. You'll notice maybe the same people saying things that sound very similar. They are paid not only by the platform, but by the people that are paying them to give this messaging. And people are very quick to just read a headline and run with it rather than digging in and getting the whole story. I noticed this when we put out content on our conservative ladies platforms and we'll push out an article. People will respond only to the headline, and their comment indicates that they clearly did not take the time to read the article. And this is a problem. Sure, the influencers are pushing an agenda, but we, as citizens, as content consumers, have a responsibility and a duty to actually dig in a little deeper. We need to read beyond the headlines. We need to, if something doesn't look right, we need to explore it further. That's one of the reasons that I like to read legislation and I like to read the rulings that come out of the courts rather than reading an article about it or somebody else's commentary. Because if you go directly to the source, you're going to get the factual story. And from there, you can form your own opinion. We can't afford to be manipulated like this, but we also can't afford to allow ourselves to be manipulated like this. It is our responsibility as citizens to dig deeper, to not take the headlines and run with it and repost things and spread things that may or may not be factual. This is one of the reasons why I haven't put out anything about Dan Bongino's threats to leave the FBI. I don't know if he has. I've searched and I haven't seen anything come directly from Dan Bongino himself. He supposedly didn't show up to work on Friday, but again, it's July and maybe he took a long weekend. I think it's too early to say. And I think until the facts are all out there, we don't want to jump to conclusions. Let's talk for a minute about the Jeffrey Epstein files. And is there is there something to see? Well, my personal opinion is that there is something to see there. I believe that there are a lot of powerful people who are on that list and who would be incriminated or at least look really bad if this information comes out. I have a feeling that there are a lot of establishment Republicans and potentially a lot of mega donors who are also on that list. I don't think that being associated with Epstein necessarily makes them guilty of the crimes that he was guilty of. However, it doesn't look good for them, and they would have a lot of explaining to do. I think it's very possible that Trump could be suppressing the information and wanting people to move past it because he's been getting some pressure from these people to not release this information because it would create so much chaos. I don't think that's the right move to make. I think letting these people explain themselves would be the best scenario. And I think that the American people would deserve answers from these people. I know that Jeffrey Epstein did a lot of financial investing for powerful people. That doesn't mean that they were part of his sex trafficking. But I think the American people have a right to know who was involved and at what level. Disagreeing with the way that Trump is handling this situation doesn't mean that I don't like Trump or that I think the whole Trump administration is failing. We did put out a Substack article on this particular topic, and a lot of people actually got very defensive, which I predicted that could happen. And that's part of the blind trust. We have to be able to look at these things in a critical manner to decipher what is the truth. And I believe that the American people do deserve the truth about this. And one of the things that this is indicative of is what other things are being covered up or are being lied about in this administration or in any administration. And one of the things that has really opened my eyes as I've been very involved in the legislative process over the last 4 years is that there is a lot of corruption, even from the good guys. There's a lot of political pressure and political corruption. There's a ton of money involved in lobbyists, special interest groups, mega donors, and even good people that are elected to office get swayed by these factors that are involved in playing politics. I'm here to remind you that it's okay and it's actually essential that we ask hard questions, even of the politicians that we really like. It's okay to challenge people who are on our side when they're not being honest or when they fail to act with integrity. We should demand truth from every elected official, every agency, and every talking head. That includes your favorite conservative influencers and political pundits as well. My call to action for you today: don't take headlines at face value. Dig in, find the deeper story, challenge yourself to seek out the truth. Use discernment and don't just react emotionally, especially when it comes to people that we really like, or conversely, people that we really don't like, because those are the people that are most likely to elicit a emotional response from us. And hold everyone accountable, not just the people that we don't like. And remind you of my saying, it's not personal, it's policy, or it's not personal, it's politics. We have to be able to separate the person from the politics or the policy. And if they are an elected leader, they have a duty to act with integrity and to be accountable to the people that they have been elected to represent. Like I said at the start of this video, this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, but one of the things that I have watched really closely, especially over the last few years that I've been involved as an activist, is how people really do jump on the headlines and take it as truth rather than really digging in. And we are in a time where every side is pushing their agenda and their narratives. And it's important that we as citizens take the time to dig in and dive deeper. We need to be critical thinkers, and we need to care more about truth than loyalty to a person or a party. If you haven't already read the Substack that we pushed out this morning, I will have a link to that in the description below. If you are not already, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on the Epstein Files and just the issue of government accountability and citizens being critical thinkers and seeking out the truth. Leave us a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.